A peaceful night suddenly turned into a nightmare. The sky abruptly became a sea of fire. A devastating wildfire changed everything forever. And in that moment, the lives of Everett and his friends would never be the same again. Secrets long buried began to surface. Unexplainable powers, strange things they had never known, now forcing them to confront a world they couldn't have imagined. The story begins when the wildfire in California broke out. The children in the car all looked outside. The forest in front of them was now burned down. The cries of animals echoed in the forest. They ran away to find a chance to survive. The chaotic scene outside scared the students. They all jumped out of the car and ran away. In the stream of fleeing creatures, a bighorn sheep, its body scorched, dragged its heavy steps, its eyes wild. Panic had turned many animals into dangers. They turned to attack humans. Everett got off the car last. He appeared extremely bewildered. Everett was stunned when he saw his friend being trampled by a wild animal. While Everett was regaining his composure to run away, the silhouette of a giant wolf suddenly appeared. Before Everett could react, the wolf charged at him. He was thrown to the ground. His body trembled. The out-of-control car was also rushing straight towards him. Everett could only lie still and look at the approaching danger in despair. At that moment, his friend appeared. With her courage and quick wit, she pulled him out of the danger zone in time. She didn't have time to say anything more before standing up and running away immediately. She also had a terrible wound on her body. Everett's shoulder was also bitten by the wild wolf. He turned and ran in the opposite direction from her. In front of him now was a curtain of smoke rising to the sky. Everett staggered to the hospital. After an unknown amount of time, Everett woke up in a hospital bed. He discovered a strange shadow behind the curtain. Everett carefully pulled the curtain aside. It turned out that the bed next to him had an injured bighorn sheep lying there. Everett only saw something moving in its belly. A sharp claw appeared inside the sheep's belly. At this moment, the doctor came to examine the patient. Everett turned around in surprise, but the strange scene had already disappeared. The doctor said that they had contacted Everest's parents. Not long after, the phone rang, breaking the heavy atmosphere. Everest picked up the phone and put it to his ear. From the other end of the line, a low and cold voice rang out. The mysterious man warned Everett to leave the hospital immediately. According to him, something was targeting Everett. It would take Everett's life before the full moon. The phone had just been disconnected when Everett's shoulder was in so much pain that he fainted on the ground. Fortunately, he regained consciousness after a while. His mother said that he was only slightly injured. Everett was curious, so he opened the bandage, but in his mother's eyes, the wound had healed. Only Everett saw the abnormality under the skin. He remembered the mysterious man's warnings and asked to be discharged from the hospital that night. But his mother said that it was too dark now, and they could not go home. In another development, Blake successfully escaped home. Fortunately, her family was not injured, but her injuries were getting worse. Blake tried to endure the pain to drive away from this place. But when she returned to the car, her younger brother had disappeared. It turned out that Blake's younger brother had run to the side of the road and was looking at the forest in the distance. Blake followed her brother's gaze. She was surprised to find a giant wolf in the woods. She quickly pulled her younger brother into the car. Unexpectedly, their car got stuck in traffic and couldn't move. They were still a long way from the concentration camp. Blake wanted to go to a hotel to rest, but Blake's father didn't have money to rent a room. In the end, Blake took her own money so her father could drive to the hotel. Finally, the three of them could sit down and breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, Blake accidentally discovered that the pimples on her face had disappeared. After a while, the pain in her wound returned. She was rolling around in pain on the bathroom floor. Unexpectedly, when Blake stood up and looked in the mirror, she saw Everett. She wanted to clear this up, so she packed her luggage and left the hotel. At the same time, Everett was also looking for Black because he had seen her wound and he thought that Blake would have the same problem as him. There was no one on the road. Blake ran so fast that it was unbelievable. The two met in front of Blake's house. They told each other about each other's situation and discovered that both of their bodies had changed. Everett's body suddenly became toned and Blake could run extremely fast. While the two were still wondering, a wolf suddenly appeared. Fortunately, the loyal hunting dog appeared to protect its owner in time. Everett and Blake took the opportunity to run away. Completely different from Everett and Blake, who were confused about what was happening, a scene of two strange brothers arguing in a bar appeared. Through their conversation, they learned that they were werewolves who had been hiding in this small town for many years. And now, they were preparing to find their missing adoptive father named Garrett. He was a local ranger. The police found the pickup truck that Garrett often drove. There was an extremely large scratch on the body of the car. It was deep and clear. Luna felt heavy in her heart when she saw the scratch. She remembered 18 years ago. Garrett found her and Harlan in a forest engulfed by a raging fire. Now, now, the terrible fire flared up again, leaving behind the traces of a giant wolf. Luna wondered if their biological father had returned. Because Garrett was just a normal person, so Luna was very worried about him. Garrett was trapped in the forest at this time. He was surrounded by darkness and danger. He could only pull out the recorder and carefully record the last words sent to his beloved two children. Each word was a wish, both heavy and heartbreaking. While the two siblings were searching everywhere, a wolf howl sounded in the distance. Their eyes suddenly turned white. They started running continuously out of control, as if being controlled by someone. Everett and Blake also felt that cry. The four met in the forest. Their eyes were golden. At this time, the clouds in the sky had dispersed, revealing a full moon like a giant lamp illuminating the forest. Everett finally understood that he and Blake had been bitten and had turned into werewolves. Blake could not accept this fact, so she turned around and ran away. The other three had to chase after them, but fortunately, Blake had only run a short distance when she encountered a firefighter. The four children were chased away by the adults. Luna drove Blake and Everett home. Then she went to find the female firefighter to confirm their father's condition. This female firefighter knew Garrett, so she comforted the two siblings, saying that Garrett had been professionally trained, so he could survive in the forest without any problems for a week. At the same time, Everett lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He tried everything but still couldn't sleep. Blake also returned to the hotel. Unexpectedly, the phone on the table started flashing continuously. When she picked up the phone and listened carefully, there was a strange voice saying that her friend was in danger. Blake quickly turned off the phone and went to bed to rest, but she was just as sleepless as Everett. Both of them had to wait until the sun rose before falling into a deep sleep. Both Everett and Blake could only fall into a short sleep when the sun rose, but it was clear that their daily routine had been inexplicably disrupted. Very soon, Everett's mother came to wake him up and said that the police were here. This time, they were here to investigate the cause of the forest fire. The policewoman named Kristen suspected that the students were the ones who caused the fire, so Kristen slowly investigated and eliminated each person in the car. After Everett obediently answered the questions according to the procedure, he hid in the house to do homework with his friend Connor. Everett was grounded by his mother and couldn't go out. Everett accidentally learned that Connor was also bitten by a wolf and injured in the back, but miraculously, he was fine. When Connor returned from Everett's house, he immediately went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor looked at the bite on his back and planned to give him an injection, but at this moment, Connor suddenly became agitated. Even though Connor had been injected with a sedative, his state was still as agitated as before. Connor even received a call from the mysterious person. He followed the instructions and escaped from the hospital. At the same time, Blake was testing her running speed inside the house, but no matter what she did, she couldn't get the same speed as last night. A moment later, Kristen came to find her with the excuse of asking for more information about the fire. Elsewhere, Luna was extremely worried about Garrett. She thought back to the past. When she was still a little wolf, Luna and Harlan were saved by her father, Garrett, a forest ranger who had rescued them after a wildfire. Fortunately, Garrett was still alive this time. He tried his best to escape the forest that was engulfed in flames. Although exhausted, he still persevered and moved forward. Finally, before he collapsed, he met the rescue team. Because the full moon was approaching, the werewolf's condition was also very abnormal. Luna discovered that her body was not normal. She began to breathe rapidly and felt confused and nervous. Suddenly, a wild horse rushed straight in, broke open the door, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The scene was as vague as an illusion, making Luna confused. Immediately after that, she received news that Garrett had been saved and immediately rushed to the hospital. He was taken to the emergency room, leaving the two children to wait anxiously outside. But before they could calm down, they had to face another problem. The police appeared, asking to investigate the incident involving both of them. In another development, Everett went to find Blake to discuss the werewolf story. During the conversation, he accidentally knew that Blake had an autistic younger brother. After the two of them comforted the younger brother, they went outside to talk. Everett was suddenly attracted to Blake after turning into a werewolf. Before Blake could understand what was happening, Connor called for help. The two immediately rushed to the hospital to find Connor. At this time, Connor was limping to the back door of the hospital. He wanted to escape from this net to escape, but his casted leg was caught in the net. Connor gritted his teeth, picked up a rock, and used force to break the cast to escape. When he was about to stand up and run out of the hospital, the giant wolf appeared. When Everett arrived, he found only the powder that had been bundled on Connor's legs remaining. He immediately picked it up to observe. A second later, he was surrounded by the police. Blake was also locked in the back car. When Everett got in the car, he found that Harlan and Luna were also there. The four were taken to the nearby rescue station for investigation. Blake's old friend, Phoebe, had just walked out of the interrogation room. She curled her lips provocatively, coldly announcing that she had told the police that Blake was the most suspicious person. Harlan frowned in annoyance when he heard that. He knew that he not only had to protect Blake, but also had to hide the werewolf identity of the whole group. He had no choice but to immediately agree on a common statement for all four of them. In fact, that day they had simply gone to the forest to use drugs. After that, the four were brought in for interrogation at the same time. Werewolves could sense each other, so the process of taking statements was very smooth. But Everett didn't want to lie, so he insisted on calling a lawyer. This made people even more suspicious of him. Harlan's hot temper also made the police angry. When the situation was getting worse, Garrett appeared in time. He spoke up and said that the police had no right to question minors privately without a lawyer present. Then he also conveniently took the 4 children away. At the same time, Blake's friend Phoebe was also preparing to leave, but unexpectedly, the car's wheels were scraped. She had no other choice but to call her father to pick her up. Unexpectedly, the car shook violently. Another wheel exploded. Phoebe closed the door in fear. Then, the other 2 wheels also encountered the same situation. Scene change. Back to the main characters. On the way home, Garrett learned that Everett and Blake had mutated after being attacked by wolves. He also said that he was also attacked by wolves, so he had to cross the fire barrier. But Garrett was not injured. Based on the current situation, it is very likely that the aggressive wolf is Harlan and Luna's biological father. After Garrett returned home, the first thing he did was to find Harlan and Luna to talk. He was worried that the 2 newly transformed werewolves, Everett and Blake, would attack humans. They were completely different from Harlan and Luna, who were born werewolves like them. It was at this time that Phoebe sent a voice message to Harlan, saying that her tire was slashed. She asked if Blake was trying to get revenge on her. After hearing this, Garrett was worried that the werewolf was responsible, so he immediately set out to find Phoebe. Before leaving, he told the 4 children to stay in the house and not run around. As soon as Garrett left, the policeman from earlier quietly approached. Everett didn't know he was being followed. What he was most worried about now was the mysterious man's warnings because the full moon was coming. Would the wolf come back to harm people? Everyone locked all the doors and waited in fear. At this time, they also confirmed everyone's abilities. Everett had strength, Black had speed, Harlan and Luna had a sharp sense of smell and hearing. When they were in the police interrogation room, they could sense the abilities of the others. This meant that when the werewolves gathered together, their abilities resonated. Everett opened a sound with an extremely high frequency, but only Harlan could hear it. Could it be that their previous guess was wrong? But just a second later, all 4 of them smelled something. Someone was gradually approaching this house. Then, there was another knock on the door. Fortunately, it wasn't a werewolf, but a police officer. Harlan told everyone to go inside, and he would deal with it. The officer was both aggressive and disobedient. As soon as he opened the door, the officer forced Harlan to admit that he had started the fire. Luna heard the noise and quickly contacted Garrett. At this moment, Harlan suddenly heard some strange noise. Unexpectedly, just a second later, a wolf rushed out and knocked the officer down. Harlan rushed into the room and told Luna that the wolf had arrived. On the other side, Garrett told Harlan to go to the stables to find a gun for self-defense. Harlan took Luna to get the gun hidden in the safety notch, and Garrett told him the password over the phone. At this time, Luna was attracted to a white horse. Harlan didn't know what happened to Luna. He quickly grabbed the phone and continued to unlock it. In the chest, there were not only guns, but also silver bullets. It turned out that this was a weapon specifically used to deal with werewolves. When Blake saw Harlan and Luna disappear, she was about to leave. But at this time, Everett received a call from the mysterious person. The other party warned the 2 not to leave the room. In another development, the policeman who was dragged away also regained consciousness. He tried to get up and check around. Unexpectedly, he discovered a large wolf right in front of him. The policeman was dragged aside and then abused to death. In that house, Blake did not believe the mysterious person's words. She called Everett to leave with her. Unexpectedly, the 2 of them accidentally encountered the wolf. It slowly approached Everett. It came close to smell the scent on Everett's body, but did not harm him. In the critical moment, Harlan shot and chased it away. Everett could not understand why the wolf did not harm him. Luna said that the 2 of them were bound to she and Harlan. Individuals in the wolf pack would not harm each other at will. Since the 4 of them were part of a wolf pack, Everett's panic attack also affected the other members. When Garrett returned home, he found Harlan holding silver bullets. Harlan questioned Garrett about why you had weapons specifically for hunting werewolves. Did Garrett intended to kill me and Luna? Garrett did not deny it. After all, Garrett had never seen a werewolf before. He did not know if Harlan and Luna were harmful to people. That was why Garrett kept them to protect himself, because the police had just arrived and disappeared without returning. Everyone could guess that something had happened to the other party. The peaceful days were about to end. Even if the wolf was Harlan and Luna's biological father, it was still a dangerous killer. Garrett took Everett and Blake to their respective homes. He told them to go to school as usual tomorrow. The next morning, Everett woke up early. At this time, his parents were talking to each other. Everett's mother kept complaining that her son's panic disorder made her extremely tired. She also said that Everett could not be compared to other people's children. Her words made Everett very sad. Everett hated his sensitive hearing a little. He went to school in a bad mood. He met a friend named Tia. The other person had seen the wolf harming people in the forest fire with his own eyes. He wanted to ask Everett for some anti-anxiety medicine. At that moment, the teacher brought in a pile of test papers and prepared to take the test. The other students were very depressed. Everett looked at Connor's empty seat and was extremely worried about him. Everett's illness relapsed and he could not concentrate. Unexpectedly, Harlan and Luna were also in the the same situation. Blake's hands were shaking so much that he could not hold a pen. The four of them immediately made an appointment to meet in the bathroom. Everyone tried to persuade Everett, make him remember what his mother said this morning. He couldn't help but let out a frustrated sigh and angered Harlan. The two couldn't continue talking, so they got into a fight. Harlan was so angry that he showed his fangs. Blake got angry again. Since the two of them would lose control when they met, they needed to keep their distance from each other in the future. The four of them said goodbye to each other in an argument. Luna's desire to have friends was extinguished again, so she had to go to the library alone. Unexpectedly, Austin came to find her at this time. Austin wanted someone with artistic talent and asked Luna to help him draw the shape of a monster. Austin knew for sure that no one would believe him. After listening, Luna could only advise him that if he saw a monster in the future, he must run away. She knew very well how dangerous werewolves were, because Luna remembered a story that happened in the past. When she was little, Luna lost control and killed a horse that Garrett had just bought, so Garrett decided to make silver bullets. At the same time, after Blake returned home, she accidentally learned that her younger brother received a mysterious phone call. The mysterious person with an unknown origin warned Blake that she needed the help of wolves to survive. Blake was uneasy and worried, so she took her younger brother to work with her. On the way, Blake discovered a strange black car. She was worried, so she ran down to the parking lot to check, but when she returned to work, her brother had disappeared. Blake was extremely worried about her younger brother, so she ran everywhere to look for him. She ran up to the roof. Her eyes turned yellow, and she loudly called her brother's name. Then, she went back to work to call her father. As a result, Blake saw Everett holding her younger brother in front of her. The boy was still holding a bunch of wolf fur in his hand. It turned out that the big wolf had appeared. Everett said that after he heard Blake's cry, he ran here without thinking. At that moment, Harlan and Luna also rushed over. The individuals in the wolf pack could not ignore the call of their comrades. No matter how much the four of them ostracized each other, their fates were still tied together. In another development, Kristen was still looking for Connor. Last night, she returned to the scene of the disappearance. Unexpectedly, she saw a sheep with large horns that was injured. On its belly, there was a scratch mark from an extremely large wild animal. There must be some dangerous creature in this forest. Kristen's intuition told her that Garrett must know about this, so she immediately called Garrett to the police station. She asked him if he was risking his life to cross the fire line to find something. Kristen then took Garrett to the body of the bighorn sheep, but Garrett did not reveal the existence of the werewolf. He lied that the wound was caused by a black bear. That day, he crossed the fire line to find the black bear. However, this was not the answer Kristen wanted to hear. When she was about to leave in disappointment, Garrett called her back. Garrett knew why Kristen suspected that the children had started the forest fire. The reason was because there was a second fire in the forest. But before the two could discuss it, Kristen received news that the police officer who had acted on his own was also missing. His car was still parked near Garrett's house, so Kristen sent someone to investigate. Unexpectedly, they saw blood stains on the tree trunk. They did not know that the colleague had been taken back to the werewolf's lair and thrown into the body pit. The news of the missing police officer quickly reached the four werewolves. The four of them discussed a solution together. Now everyone could confirm that the police had attacked a member of the wolf pack, so they were attacked. Connor's bite was different from theirs, so he was not a member of the wolf pack. Because Connor's leg was injured, he accidentally stimulated the werewolf's instinct to attack. At this moment, the mysterious call came again. All four of their phones rang at almost the same time. Everett hesitated to hang up the call, but the mysterious person sent a poem. Its content was related to the desire to live of the first werewolf Lycaon. This person was the king of Arcadia, but he was also the one who secretly offered human flesh. After Jesus found out, he turned Lycaon into a werewolf. The mysterious person said that werewolves cannot control the desires in their bodies. Only when the four of them worked together could they stop themselves from continuing to harm people. As soon as the phone was disconnected, the mysterious person sent an address. Harlan, Luna, Everett, and Blake immediately moved to the location. When they arrived, they saw an overturned car inside a small alley. When the four of them opened the car door to save the person, the woman in the car was suddenly pulled into the dark. The woman only had time to scream miserably and then fell silent. The four of them hurriedly drove away. They were also sure that the woman in the car had met with an accident. Right now, they were still not capable of dealing with the giant werewolf, so they could only think of a way to stop the werewolf from continuing to harm people. In another development, Kristen and Garrett joined forces to investigate the cause of the forest fire, because Kristen had discovered fire-making tools at the second fire site in the forest. Moreover, these tools all came from the school. That's why she followed the students to investigate. At this time, the bell signaling the start of literature class rang. The students also moved into the classroom one by one. Kristen kept Cyrus alone to ask questions. Cyrus's father was a firefighter. Not only that, he also died in a forest fire that happened many years ago. Cyrus had experienced a very painful experience because of his father's death, but he still brought the other students to the construction site to let them watch the fire together. This was indeed a bit suspicious. Kristen asked for the location of the construction site. Then she sent sent someone to check it out. She showed Garrett the satellite video of the fire that day. At the same time, she also speculated that after the perpetrator set the fire, he would come here to monitor the process of the fire. But Garrett saw that these two fires were burning at the same time. Perhaps the arsonist was standing at this construction site, and he controlled the drone carrying the flammable device and set the two devices to start in two different locations. Cyrus was the most suspected person in front of him. When everyone was about to leave, they accidentally saw an elevator. Kristen told her colleagues to go first, and she would stay and check with the construction security. Unexpectedly, while checking, they came to the place where the werewolf dumped the body. Before the security guard could understand what was happening, Kristen knocked him out and pushed him into the body pit. The scene switched back to the four Harlans. The mysterious person sent them a new location. The werewolf's target tonight was a girl named Tia. Halen knew that the other party was holding a party, so he decided to mix in and act that night. Everest wanted to improve his strength skills, so he ran to the gym to practice. His outstanding strength made everyone in the gym extremely admired. Harlan saw it and also secretly practiced. Unexpectedly, thanks to the werewolf's ability, his strength also increased dramatically. Because of that, the relationship between the two became happy again. Everett and Harlan sat together to talk. The two discussed Lycaon's story again. They did not expect that the werewolf appeared because of being forced to transform, and they would also have the opportunity to transform back to normal people. Time passed quickly until evening. The group of four people arrived at Tia's house. The atmosphere at the party was very lively, but the ferocious werewolf had not shown any movement yet, so everyone relaxed their mood to enjoy the party. The four of them split up to talk to everyone at the party. Harlan also exchanged phone numbers with Kirk, but he discovered that Kirk's phone number looked very familiar. At this moment, there was an argument coming from the pool. It turned out that Phoebe was drunk and brought up old stories. She still thought that Blake was the one who scratched her tire. Austin saw this and ran over. Blake saw this and immediately grabbed Austin's phone and threw it into the pool, so he had to jump in and get the phone. Unexpectedly, Austin saw the giant wolf under the pool. He hurriedly swam out of the pool quickly. The group of four looked down at the calm water, and the silhouette of the wolf appeared before their eyes. Everyone screamed in fear and hid inside together. The big wolf hid in the dark without making any noise, so everyone could only hide inside the house. Everett accidentally saw a strange blonde guy. He kept staring outside the door and panting. He kept saying that he couldn't remember his name. Everett just thought he was drunk, so he didn't care too much. Everyone gradually lost their patience. They felt that the wild beast outside had left. Everett advised everyone not to let their guard down. He also honestly said that Connor also died from a wild animal attack, but he didn't say it was a werewolf, only a big bear. Austin was very agitated after hearing that. He didn't understand why Everett lied, and that monster was definitely not a black bear. Austin angrily ran to another room. Everett didn't chase after him. Everett realized that the strange blonde boy from earlier had disappeared. Cyrus was quite brave, so he decided to go out and find someone. Harlan was worried about the other person, so he went with them. At the same time, Kristen called Garrett, and she lied that the security guard couldn't find the key, so they couldn't get into the abandoned elevator. Garrett didn't suspect anything and told Kristen that they had found key evidence at Cyrus's house. A moment later, the police drove to Tia's mansion. The police said they wanted to find Cyrus. Taking this opportunity, Everett told Garrett that the big wolf was in the backyard. At this time, Cyrus and Harlan were looking for people in the woods. They had gone quite a distance when Harlan suggested that the two of them should go back. Cyrus agreed because he liked Harlan very much. He also said that he was worried about Harlan's population, so he wouldn't accept her. Harlan was immediately bewildered after hearing this. It seemed that Cyrus knew something, but before Harlan could ask again, she saw the big wolf behind Cyrus. While they were still scared and didn't know what to do, Kristen came in front of the two with a gun. She told Harlan and Cyrus to leave this place immediately. Very quickly, the people inside the mansion heard gunshots. Garrett immediately grabbed the gun with silver bullets and rushed towards the woods. Kristen had just fired a warning shot. She said that she had no intention of harming the werewolves. Moreover, she could help the werewolves return to their homes. When the wolf gradually calmed down, other policemen brought their guns to the scene. The big wolf, hiding in the dark, became more aggressive. It was about to rush towards Garrett. Garrett immediately opened fire, shooting the big wolf's shoulder. Kristen returned to the villa and asked everyone to return home. Garrett found out that Harlan was not there. Luna guessed that Harlan might want to hide Cyrus. It was just that Harlan did not leave a message, so she could not know Harlan's location. Everett still remembered the matter of the blonde boy. He was worried that the other party would be eaten by the werewolf. Anyway, tonight's matter was not over yet. As for Harlan, it turned out that he did not go far. He brought Cyrus to the stables at his house. Harlan wanted to take this opportunity to ask all the questions he was wondering about. First, Cyrus's number would display as no call when calling others. Then he said a strange word like heard, and all of these things were very suspicious. Cyrus explained that he often received annoying calls, so he deliberately hid his phone number. As for the word group, he only imagined that the relationship between the four of them was very close. Cyrus said that the annoying caller often mentioned the cause of his father's death, but Cyrus was sure that his father had died died in a fire, so he didn't care about the other party. Harlan believed that the other party wasn't lying, so the two of them spent the night in the stables. The dark night returned to a state of silence. Inside the villa, Phoebe had just finished covering her sister with a blanket and then went out to the pool. Unexpectedly, the big wolf appeared and opened its giant mouth to drag Phoebe's body away from the pool. But this scene was seen by Austin, who was lying on the sofa. Early the next morning, the group gathered in the stables. They discussed who called Cyrus. Everett suddenly mentioned the fire that happened 17 years ago. Cyrus said that only one man named Malcolm survived the fire. Malcolm confirmed that Cyrus's father's group was attacked by werewolves. Malcolm is currently working as a nurse in a hospital. The four people heard and immediately ran to the hospital to find Malcolm. Malcolm saw that they knew about the existence of werewolves, so he took them to his workplace to talk. Indeed, 17 years ago, there was a fire. The rescue team members were surrounded by fire. There was only one rail that could get out. Unexpectedly, they were stopped by a gray wolf. The rescue team members could not chase it away, so they had to shoot, but the wolf was still able to stand up despite being shot several times. It was not until Cyrus's father aimed at its middle and shot that it was defeated. Everyone dragged its body and threw it into the fire. As a result, the wolf was still alive. Not only that, the fire also made its body twice as big. It could even use its hind legs to move independently. Everyone immediately cut down trees and attacked it. Finally, the injured wolf ran away. But unfortunately, there was more than one wolf in the forest. The gray wolf was blocking the way because it didn't want humans to step into its life. When the rescue team members ran out of bullets, they became prey. At that time, Malcolm could only run as fast as he could, so he didn't actually see the wolf bite people with his own eyes, but he could hear the miserable cries of his teammates. Everett also remembered Garrett finding Harlan and Luna at the fire. 17 years ago, the gray wolf was probably Harlan and Luna's mother. Moreover, the wolf might have been hit by a tree and died, so the wolf bit the remaining firefighters to avenge its mate. They already knew that fire was the key to transforming a werewolf, which meant that the mysterious person on the other side was most likely the culprit of this fire, because that person knew that using fire would transform a werewolf. At this time, Harlan discovered that the stable door was open. It turned out that Garrett had found Cyrus here and handed him over to the police for handling. Harlan was so angry that he wanted to punch Garrett. Harlan's anger was so great that his fangs bared. The other three people in the group were also forced to reveal themselves. Garrett saw this and immediately called Harlan's name. The four of them immediately returned to normal. Garrett knew that as long as he called out the werewolf's name, he could help the other party regain his sanity, and Harlan would definitely not hurt him. Moreover, the big wolf was not Harlan's biological father. It turned out that after Garrett shot the big wolf with a silver bullet that night, the big wolf had transformed into the blonde boy's appearance. He was also the one who had forgotten his name. But Everett remembered that his name was Baron. Luna realized that Baron was most likely their brother. That night, while sleeping, Everett suddenly woke up with a start. He saw the main door of the house open. In the distance, half a werewolf flew quickly in front of him, scaring Everett into hiding behind the cupboard. Looking closely, the werewolf that Everett saw was Baron. Baron harms people every night. He kills innocent people every night. But Baron said that he didn't know, and he didn't kill anyone. Scene change. Kristen went to Garrett's house. She asked Garrett about Harlan and Luna. At the same time, she reminded Garrett to protect his child well. Then, Kristen saw the silver bullet that Garrett made. On this side, Everett called everyone over and told them about the strange things he encountered last night. Everyone believed it was true. After the incident, Everett took Blake home. They passed the land office and found that the scene had been surrounded by police. The scene scared Blake, and he rushed to find her father. Blake did not see her younger brother and hurriedly asked his father where Danny had gone. It turned out that Danny was sitting in another car and the boy was fine, but Blake's father said that Danny discovered Phoebe's body. They saw the body being put in the car and their hearts were very heavy. Blake and Everett were extremely puzzled as to why the werewolf brought Phoebe's body to the land office car. At the same time, they felt that they could not sit idly by and wait for death. After that, the four of them continued to meet and made a plan to lure the werewolf out to kill it. Austin was the werewolf's next target. They used Austin as bait and used the cold room to lock the werewolf up. They also specially made a silver knife. Garrett and Kristen investigated the forest fire together. Kristen wondered if Garrett was at the police station at the time and had a conflict to protect his child. Garrett also said that Kristen's child was still alive. Then she also fell into memory. Last time in the forest fire, the firefighter injured a wolf. The wolf's friend turned into a crazy werewolf to take revenge on them. It turned out that Kristen was the werewolf who killed the firefighter. Here, Luna and Austin were kissing. The plan to lure the werewolf out to kill officially began. At this time, the werewolf appeared. Luna and Austin ran very fast. Blake acted as bait and brought the werewolf into the cold cellar. Just when Everest couldn't hold on, he called out the werewolf's name, so he was able to escape. The four people began to use force to block the werewolf behind the door, until Baron lost consciousness due to the extremely low temperature. They quickly gave first aid to Baron to wake him up. While they were helping to save people, the mysterious phone number called again, saying that if they didn't withdraw the money, Harlan would die. If they took Baron to the hospital, their werewolf identities would be exposed. But if Baron died, the connection between the four of them would no longer exist and their superpowers would weaken. They decided to leave Baron on the bed, and Baron fell into a coma. Everyone here had a superpower, so what was Baron's power? After discussing for half a day, Everett said that Baron's power was to turn others into werewolves. This surprised everyone. On the other side, Kristen and Garrett had arrived at the scene of the cold storage warehouse. Garrett didn't think that it was something his four cute friends did. Kristen told them to go home and rest and not think too much. Blake and Everett at home also gradually discovered that Kristen was the most suspicious. Both of them were reminded by Blake's younger brother. If someone shakes hands with Christine, they will not be attacked by the black werewolf. At that time, Blake sat on the ground, and Kristen also reached out and pulled Blake up. Garrett rushed into Everett's house and found Baron lying on the bed. Garrett immediately took him to the hospital. According to Harlan's previous surprise, the firefighter who had talked to them before was very likely the one who set fire to the forest and the owner of that mysterious phone call. Macomb took Baron to his secret base. Baron also gradually recalled the memories of when he was in the fire and why he lost control and turned into a werewolf. Through the clues left at the hospital, Kristen also found Mekon's secret base. He wants to take revenge on his teammates, so he decided to beat Kristen to death tonight. Then the two began to fight fiercely. Macomb took out a silver-plated axe and used a silver-bulleted gun to take down Kristen. The two fought with no clear winner. The first season of World Fight has ended. If you liked the video, please share and like it.